Now let me speak to you a second about how we got where we are today with this committee. 5 years ago, my small committee and I were like Pied Pipers piping about a North Carolina memorial. For a long time we piped to ourselves. No one listened or followed. Vietnam was still not a very popular subject to be discussed at cocktail parties or even listened to. No, even back in 1982, it was not fashionable in this country and in many parts of North Carolina to show respect for our military. When it was questionable that my Monument Committee and I could put this Vietnam project together, when the White Patriot Party threatened us with bodily harm because our statue shows not only a white trooper in the heat of battle, but also a black trooper, it was these 10 committee members that rallied around me, that rallied around this idea. It was our sponsors and other supportive groups that kept this ball rolling over every single obstacle after obstacle and objection after objection that we rolled over. I want you to thank that committee today. Yes, it was these groups that helped hold this committee together to bring us to the point where we are today. Today, we unveiled the Vietnam Veterans Monument. It's more than a monument. You're going to see that. It is a work of art that will give the average North Carolinian a glimpse, a small taste of humanity in a struggle with moments of terror that very few, thankfully, will ever feel. It will give us a snapshot of the moments of compassion and the moments of suffering and the utter helplessness that the average North Carolina foot soldier felt in the Vietnam War. The memorial will tell you at a glance that this war, like all others, will be respected for the human sacrifices that it represents. It must be respected for the human qualities of courage and selflessness that its young participants had in overcoming the North Vietnamese, the Viet Cong, and lastly, their own country's apathy and sometimes open criticism. Despite what anyone's politics were, one must respect any man that flies thousands of miles to a land with treacherous jungles, mountains, and rice paddies, following the elusive goal of freedom for a neighbor. Only an American would be so dead sure, so confident that he could help a whole nation find freedom. Intellectuals might say that this concept's pretty naive. Maybe so. But if naive means being uncomfortable when someone is oppressed, or if naive is wanting our neighbors to share the freedom that we share here in North Carolina, if that is naive, then let me and any who agree that the only way for people to live is free, then let us all be called naive. To the parents of Vietnam veterans, this too is truly your day. You gave to this country, to this state, and to the people of South Vietnam your most precious possession. Some of you parents got your sons and daughters back. I ask you to talk to them, to help them with their visions and their nightmares. Please be a part of it. To those of you who never got your child back, this moment is too little, too late, and nowhere near worth your sacrifice. All I ask you is when you think of your fallen son, know that you should be proud of him and yourselves. If this fallen trooper was married to one of you ladies, we can only grieve and cry together. I can offer nothing more because there is nothing more for me to say. To you families, wives, and children, especially you children of North Carolina's 61 MIAs and POWs, I cannot offer you any new hope today. I have only one assurance for you. We as a committee made a promise to you, and the other vets of this state made a promise to you 5 years ago. We told you that we would somehow make this state remember your 61 MIAs and POWs. I can announce to you today that as long as I'm alive or a member of my committee is alive, we will preserve the memory of your loss. We will not let the world forget that 61 North Carolinians are still, after years and years and years, unaccounted for. This is one of the cruelest and most senseless tragedies to come from the aftermath of Vietnam. This horrible little third-rate power we call North Vietnam has pandered with your loved ones for 12 or 13, 14, 15, 16 years. They are using our MIAs and POWs as political pawns to extort money, technology, and favors from our government in return for just information or maybe the remains of your loved ones. I hope to God that they will pay for this travesty against humanity, and I know some of you could go back and do it again. The committee has arranged for a military ceremony that we will plan next month in honor of our 61 MIAs and POWs to be conducted each and every month on these hallowed grounds, and we vow to have this ceremony until every last one of our MIAs and POWs are accounted for. If it becomes a tourist attraction, Mr. Mayor, we hope so because we want more people to know about this. The Raleigh Marines have received permission from Headquarters Marine Corps to take the first 5 years, and I have asked the Army, Navy, Air Force, and Coast Guard for support during these 5 years, and they too have vowed to help with this ceremony. Now, to the spouses and especially the children of the Vietnam veterans that lived and are here today, I ask you today to play a part in today's dedication. I ask you to hold your husband or your daddy's hand and hug him around the neck. Hold him real tight and tell him that you love him. Then I want you boys and girls to make your father tell you about the job that he did in this nasty war and his experiences, and talk to him about them. After he has talked to you and maybe told you some frightening stories, I want you to remember them for as long as you live, because it will be your generation who will pass on the spirit and the memory of the 1,561 North Carolinians who died in Vietnam. To all of you here today, I want you to mourn with me on this tragic loss. I am wearing the mourning band issued to me with my first Marine dress uniform in 1972. It stands as a symbol for the respect I have and my fellow soldiers have for those who have fallen. I want to do more today than mourn their death. I want to mourn all of their lost life experiences, the experience of living a long and full life that they will never know. I want to mourn them for never knowing the love of a good wife. I want to mourn them for never knowing the joy of holding their own baby in their arms after it was born. I want to mourn them for missing the fruits of this great country. They never got to own a home or a farm or their own business. They never experienced the thrill of being successful in a job or having a great career. And lastly, I mourn them for missing the joys of childbirth and child rearing. The first baseball glove to your son. The first Christmas with your child. The tucking in of that child at night and the countless drinks of water carried to the bedside. When you who survived experience these things yourselves, as I have, and realize as I do that our Vietnam dead will never experience these things, it will make those of you who lived appreciate it much better. Life is sweet. I'm sure that many of you veterans, again, who survived ambushes, rocket attacks, firefights, helicopter crashes, and patrols, have often wondered why you lived and others died. I sure did. I never got there. My orders were canceled. You live for a reason. You are alive to carry on the military leader's code of honor. You former battalion commanders, you former captains, you lieutenants, you first sergeants, you buck sergeants, and you field corporals. You were taught that with your rank came responsibility. You were taught that your men came first. You were taught never to leave a wounded or dead trooper in the field of battle, and you didn't. This monument and your participation today is an extension of your leadership code of honor. You know as I do that your responsibilities extend to those men and their brave deeds beyond their graves. You know that it is also our responsibility to make sure that the memory and spirit of these men and women are preserved forever. We have all done this today. The state of North Carolina has made a statement by placing this monument here today. That statement is, when this country and this great state and when the families of both can no longer produce soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines that we can represent on monuments like this today, when we as Americans find their sacrifices in war light or trivial and not important, then that is when this country and our democratic way of life